I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, it's Saturday. I want to do an investment blog here on investing in real estate and investing in stocks, like I like to do on my Saturday one. Over the last couple of months, I'm always having lunches with my father, who I've talked about. He's now retired, but he started in Vancouver real estate in the late 1950s, selling detached homes in Kitsilano. So he's got a lot of experience in Vancouver real estate. I've also got a kind of a cohort of older realtors, some of which are now semi-retired, that I'll talk with on a fairly regular basis, just about the market. And sometimes they'll call me because they are kind of semi-retired, want to know what's going on with the market. But I've made a note that when I've been talking with these guys the last couple of months here, I've asked them about the differences between real estate, for instance, when I started back 30 years ago, and even prior to that, my dad's been a realtor for over 55 years, as I said. So I've got a lot of experience in Vancouver real estate and how it works and the process in buying and selling real estate. But I've been asking these guys about the difference because it's something I've wanted to talk about here for a while. And the thing I want to talk about here is people, and I think this has to do with technology. One of the biggest things that are keeping people back from buying their first home here, or maybe down the road even buying an investment property, is that they treat real estate like it's a stock or an equity. And they are at absolute polar opposites. There's nothing similar with them whatsoever. I'm going to go through a minute. And I think I've been asking some of these experienced people like my dad if they see the same thing, and they've all unanimously agreed that technology has changed the way people look at real estate, and not always for the better. Technology, of course, has been a huge advantage to realtors like myself, and it's provided a lot more information to people and a lot more transparency starting 12 or 15 years ago when the internet came around. But it's also, there's some downsides to it, which I'm going to explain to here in a minute. So, I've been around real estate, as I say, since I was 10 years old. And, I can clearly remember my father was always my realtor in my buying. A lot of people don't realize, the internet has only been around here for 10, 12 years that we put the MLS on the internet. People don't realize that up until, I think it was only about 10 years ago, that the Vancouver Real Estate Board quit doing their bi-weekly MLS books. I can clearly remember my first 4 or 5 purchases through my father. This was before the internet. The MLS was not online. How it worked is that the realtor would order a MLS book. And the MLS book, depending on the time of year and if it was a buyer's or seller's market, it could be maybe 30 or 40 or 50 pages. Or it could be as thick as a New York phone book. That's the easy way how you could always tell, kind of crazy, where a market was. I would go into my dad's office and I'd see he kept all his MLS books. I could clearly tell whether it was a buyer's or seller's market by how thick the book was. If the book, which came out every 2 weeks, was as thick as a New York phone book, you knew, gee, there is a lot of inventory. The market must be brutal. It's a buyer's market. If the Vancouver MLS book was thin, then hey, this is a strong seller's market. But that's how it worked back then. Every 2 weeks you would order your books. My dad would order one for Richmond. He would order one for the Vancouver East Side. He would order one for the Vancouver West Side. Depending on what he was doing, sometimes he might order one for Burnaby or New Westminster. But he always had the Vancouver and the Richmond books there. And that's how it worked. It was slow, it was outdated, it was not up to date whatsoever. A lot of times you would get the book, you'd look for the listings. A lot of times it was a new listing. By the time you phoned the realtor, it was already sold. There was a lag time there. Now, bad because there wasn't a lot of information there and it was slow and you had to be right on top of it. Good in a way that it kept people from, I think anyways, treating real estate like a stock. You had to wait to get the book. You had to look what was listed, and you had to go out and show it. The stats package, they had a little very simple stats package in the back of every book. This wasn't made public. There was no internet here. Your realtor could give that to you. My dad would photocopy those market stats, and they were very vague and very out of date, and give them to his clients. That's how it worked, and that was not that long ago, folks. We're talking 12, 13 years ago, that's how it worked. And as a matter of fact, I think the board finally phased out these MLS books maybe 8 or 9 years ago, 10 years ago. But in a way, it was a better way to buy, well, at least to buy, proper way to buy real estate, in that it encouraged you to just buy and hold. You weren't bombarded with all these stats and all these internet and social media feeds on where the market's going. I think that is holding a lot of people back. Buy your principal residence. Buy it, enjoy it, hold it. You need a roof over your head. That's the nice thing about real estate. It's tangible. It's a necessity. If you don't own, you've got to rent. And I've done lots of blogs on what it's like to rent. It's not a fun place to be long term. Okay, short term, not in the long term. So I think back in the old days, it was a lot easier to stay the course. I know it was for me. Nowadays, everything is online. You've got dozens and dozens of companies that put out these statistics packages. A lot of them, I'm telling you guys, a lot of them are cherry-picked and massaged. Basically fake. You can take any set of statistics and massage it however you want it to look. People need to realize that. No matter what the market is. You can cherry pick certain homes or certain areas to make it look like a buyer's market, a seller's market, or balance. Whatever you want, it can be massaged. The only way to get the real stats, and they're very generic, vague, is from the Vancouver Real Estate Board every month. The best metric to use is the active sales to listings ratio. It's just a simple way to tell you where the market's at. But again, even that is limited, and it's delayed. But in a lot of ways, it was a lot easier back then to stay the course. Nowadays, you've got stats packages, you've got social media, everything's online. It's good for the consumer in that they have a lot more access to information, but I think in a lot of cases, it's information overload. But they confuse real estate similar, and it seems to be diverging like it is with the financial markets. And I hope it doesn't go there. I'm waiting for the day when we have a local real estate channel that's like a CNBC, where you're going to have prices ticking across the bottom and 24-hour-a-day market analysis and opinion. That's the way it's headed. I hope it doesn't go that way, because that'll really sidetrack a lot of people. But real estate is nothing like a stock. The stock market moves at a much quicker pace. The other thing with the stock market, of course, is it is easy to get in and out of a stock position. You can sell a stock in a second or buy a stock in a matter of seconds, and it doesn't cost you anything to buy or trade. I get my trades for free, but for you, it might cost you $9.99. Real estate, on the other hand, and why I pounded home, don't try and time markets. Buy your principal residence, enjoy it, take advantage of the interest, take advantage of the principal resident exemption, and hold it. Because it is incredibly expensive to trade. It's probably one of the most expensive assets to trade in and out of. So going in and out short term is a recipe for disaster. Your friction costs are going to eliminate all your profit. You've got PTT on the way in when you buy, which is the biggest tax grab we've ever had here. Go watch my blogs that I've done over the years on the PTT. It was introduced in the 1980s as a wealth tax. It only triggered about 2 to 3% of the sales back then, because everything was under 200K. It's never been indexed to inflation. Back then, you could buy a detached house for 200K. Now you can't even get a parking space. You're going to have conveyance fees. When you sell it, you're going to have commissions. Typical one-bedroom condo in downtown Vancouver, you're looking at $15,000 to $17,000 to sell it. You might, if it's a rental property, have capital gains tax on it, another set of conveyance fees. Hey, if you're buying something new, you might have 5% GST on it as well. Whereas a stock can be traded in and out for free. So I think in a lot of ways, in talking to some old timers here, like my dad, yeah, the technology has been good in a lot of ways. More transparency, you've got access to a lot more information. It's been great for me because everything's done electronically. We don't use paper contracts anymore. It's all electronic. It's all DocuSign. When I first started out, if I needed an initial on a counter offer, a lot of times I had to drive 30 minutes to get an initial. But in some ways, I think we're bombarded with technology overload, and that technology has started to treat real estate like it's a stock, like it's an equity to be traded. And that's probably hurting more people than I think a lot of people realize. They're trying timing markets, and they're continuously analyzing real estate and stats. I've often said before, and Warren Buffett will back me up on this, if you spend 10 minutes reading statistics and analysts and these predictors of where the market's going to go, for every 10 minutes, you just wasted 9. I would just say the only stats package you need is the one that comes out with the Vancouver Real Estate Board. But the other best way to go is hire an experienced, top-producing realtor who does a lot of work in that market you want to do. So when someone comes to me and says, I want to buy a 2-bedroom condo in Yaletown, we're going to sit down, have a cup of coffee, and I'm going to tell you exactly where I'll show you the market stats, but I can go one step better. I'll show you some of the recent sales I've had, and I'll show you some comps that just recently sold, right up to date. That'll give you right there where the market's going. Anything after that about predicting what it's going to do next year, or COVID, or the economy, or whatever else, you're just taking guesses at it. I think it confuses people and freezes a lot of them on the sidelines. So real estate should never be treated like a stock. You can't live in your stock portfolio. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.